Hey everyone, Lindsay LaBonte, your host of Real People Real Estate, where we sit down with real people right here in Western Massachusetts to talk about all of the cool things folks are doing in real estate, whether they're developers, homeowners, first-time buyers, repeat buyers, landlords, attorneys. There is so much to do right here, and we want people to plant their roots in Western Massachusetts. So I'm here with Mark NeJame. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Awesome. Mark is an amazing attorney right here based in Northampton. Mark, I'm going to read your bio, which is 30 years of stuff that I've condensed here. So forgive me if it's not all the high points, but we'll touch on it. So a veteran real estate attorney who's represented buyers, sellers, refinancing, any types of homeownership really for the last 30 years. Currently practicing at NeJame and Kling law offices in Northampton alongside your wife, Julie.
Right.
And you began in Boston working with developers on condo conversions and then continued across into Western Massachusetts. First in Springfield and now in Northampton. Definitely a trusted local resource, and thank you for all the work that you do, not only with homeowners, but in the community, chambers, volunteering. You do the first-time homebuyer classes with Wayfinders and Valley CDC as well.
Right.
Yeah, so you've got a full plate. You also sit on the planning board and zoning board for
I did. This was some time ago.
Okay.
I was 5 years on the Conservation Commission.
Wow.
5 years on planning board, 5 years on zoning.
Okay.
And I chaired the zoning. And then my greatest challenge, 6 years on the Little League board.
Little League board, okay.
Because I remember your father was on it as well.
That's right. Yes, definitely. We won't go back to those coaching days, although there's some funny stories. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. So we're going to start with our kind of typical, I don't know if I should say easier, but less in-depth questions, and then we'll go into some conversation. First of all, is it okay if I call you Mark today?
Sure,
okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome. If your best friend were sitting right next to you, maybe that's Julie, what 3 words would they use to describe you?
Okay, so probably diligent, thoughtful, and I got to come up with one more. So like, I don't know, engaging.
Awesome. Those are great ones. It's so hard. That's why I say, how would someone else describe you? Because I think if you try to describe yourself, we all, don't know what to say about ourselves. But I definitely agree with what you said. And Mark and I have served, just for those listening, on some Northampton Chamber committees and boards together. And I don't know if there's a word for the person who always raises their hand and says yes, but that's also you, Mark.
Yeah, sometimes, sure.
Probably why you're on my podcast right now, so thank you for saying yes.
Sure.
What is something you've been really proud of professionally lately?
Well, I do a lot with, we talked about this with first-time home buyers, and I'm just proud that I can spend the time and do spend the time answering all the questions, because first-time home buyers, this is new to me. I've never done this before, and so really, taking the time to work through things with them, answer all the questions, try to be patient. And I've done some pro bono stuff along the way, so that's also I did some work with Grove Food Northampton when they first took over that property, and so that's something that I also enjoyed doing.
Oh yeah, that's a wonderful organization. They just presented at Northampton Rotary Group, and so I got a little more insight, and they do wonderful things. What's your earliest memory, thinking back to young Mark growing up, of homeownership and the fact that people actually own their homes?
Well, when I was growing up, when I was 2, we moved in with my grandparents while my parents built a home in Lenox. And when we moved in when I was 4, and I remember kind of coming to that and realizing that that was our new home, and it was my home growing up all the way up through high school and when I left for college. So that's what I would say.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
So I want to know, we've talked a lot about first-time homebuyers already, and you do the homebuyer courses and, give the time where first-time buying might need extra hand-holding. What draws you to that niche out of, everything that you've done?
Right. Well, I was thinking coming into this about, why real estate? Why? Because when I was in law school, I did some paralegal work for a personal injury attorney, and when I got out of law school, the first thing I did was to work for a personal injury attorney, and I didn't like it at all. I really wanted to get into a field where I could be working towards something positive, and that's why I like real estate. Like real estate is when you, like both parties are actually working towards a common goal. Everybody's like pulling together. Generally. I mean, there's just disagreements and negotiations, but generally everybody's trying to get to one place, which is the buyer wants to buy, the seller wants to sell. And sometimes I feel like attorneys, or mostly with attorneys, sometimes they're a bit too brusque, and okay, it's like when you go to the doctor's office and you run in and they see you, and then they run into the next office and the next office, and I never wanted to be that way. Which is why I enjoyed when I went out to practice on my own. So just having the time to spend, and then kind of just when I get to the closing and people say, well, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, or it worked a lot, that was so smooth, whatever, that's the great feeling. I just like, that is a great feeling.
You did your job.
Yep.
So pretend I'm a first-time home buyer. I call you, right? I'm scared to make the call. That's always, do you get that? People, when they call me, they're like, I didn't know when I should call, or how early to get started, but anyway, they make the call, they call you, hey, I'm buying a house. What does that conversation then look like from there?
Okay, so what's interesting is usually I start asking questions about where they're buying, and kind of what their situation is. Are they buying with a partner, or a spouse, or a loan, or whatever? And then usually they start to have questions. Obviously, at some point they want to know what the fee is, so we go over that. I usually ask if they're first-time home buyer, so I can talk about that. And then really just kind of, okay, this is what I do this is what the attorney does in the transaction, because that's of course what I talk about in the first-time home buyer classes. What does the attorney do? Why do you need an attorney to buy a house? In other parts of the country, they don't use attorneys. They use.
I was just going to ask you that, because people often, I think now more than ever, people are relocating maybe from one state to another, and some states don't use attorneys. Can you just briefly describe that difference?
Sure. I worked with a year or so ago a couple from Texas. And they bought a property I think it was in Belchertown, and the septic was being redone. So there was this whole issue with...
It's always something, right?
Yes. But it was this whole issue about putting money in escrow for the septic and getting that contract. And throughout it, they kept saying, when we sold, we're working with a realtor and whatever, but they said, boy, it would have been so great to have an attorney, somebody advising us, and how great it is to have you working with us on this deal, because there's all kinds of things that we wouldn't have thought about. What you're trying to protect us from A, B, C, D, and so and with the septic, you have to make sure everything's done correctly. And so we wanted to make sure that the agreements were drawn correctly, so that they would get approval at the end, and that it wasn't going to be a mess and so forth. So it really is the realization that, you're not paying that much more for an attorney than you are at a closing company or title insurance, and you're getting this benefit and this person who's in your corner and actually advocating for you. So, and you can rely upon that person. Now, a lot of attorneys use paralegals. I use less, so so they're really dealing with me. So that may be a difference, and I don't know how it is, but
that's definitely a common question that I that I get. And the other one too is, if somebody's using a lender, technically the lender has an attorney, that sort of is representing the buyer's side, but it's not really representing the buyer, right? They're working for the lender. How does that explain how that actually works? And
so in in Massachusetts, in a commercial transaction, for example, this is the more traditional. The buyer has an attorney, the bank has an attorney, the seller has an attorney.
Okay.
And you all do that. In residential transactions, the buyer's attorney, the buyer and the lender are both essentially trying to get to the same place.
Right.
And they have the same interests. And there's usually no conflicts unless for some reason the rate changes or something goes wrong with the application process. But for the most part, the bank wants a good title, the buyer wants a good title, the bank wants the deal to go through, the buyer wants to close and buy the house, and it's all similar. So we allow, and it's basically almost always the case where the buyer's attorney and the bank's attorney are the same person.
Okay.
And so as the attorney, you have to draw a line where, like, I'm representing the bank, but I'm also representing the buyer. And I tell people, if there's a conflict between the two, I have to step aside.
Yeah.
And, whatever you negotiate, you negotiate.
Yeah, right.
But for the most part, it really is me representing the buyer. And then incidentally, the lender as, because, they have their demands as well.
Yeah, yeah. What I think you mentioned in the beginning that's interesting just about home ownership transactions in general, purchases specifically, is we are all working toward the same goal.
Right.
And so even though in some other industries, or you might think, well, don't real estate agents compete or don't attorneys compete or whatever, we're all getting to the same place. So everyone plays nice in the sandbox, I guess.
Right.
Which is great. So I segued you away from your typical first-time homebuyer introduction call. So you said you explain a little bit of the process, and what are the main milestones, I guess, that you as an attorney are really working on during let's stick with the first-time homebuyer purchase kind of?
It's funny when you say like people making that first call.
Yeah.
In the Springfield area, less so up here because in the Hampshire County area, the attorneys do the purchase and sale. In the Springfield area, once you have the offer, the office of the listing agency does the purchase and sale agreement. And then basically the buyer's realtor turns to the buyer and says, okay, now who's your attorney? And sometimes they just sit there with their mouths open because they don't have the attorney.
Yeah.
So one of the things I talk about in my first-time home buyers is line your attorney up early because why not?
Yeah.
You're not going to pay any additional.
Sure.
So basically, typically where I get involved is the offer has been accepted, and now we go to purchase and sale. And so whether it's in the Hamden County area or Hampshire, the purchase and sale is the next step, and you negotiate that, make sure the buyer understands it, and then from that point, typically I'm working on the title aspects and getting the lender everything that they want, and then the buyers are doing their inspection and shopping for insurance and making sure that their tax returns and everything go to the lender and so forth.
Yeah.
So we talk about the inspection, and then we talk about, and at some point I usually try to get them to start looking for homeowners insurance early on.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, your crew always is putting that at the forefront.
Yeah.
They've got everything going right away. But some of them just sort of let people kind of discover.
Right.
I need insurance.
Right.
Why haven't you gotten it yet?
Yeah.
So I try to tip them off that they need to get rolling on that, and then we talk about anything that might come up if there's issues, or if there's issues with the mortgage plan or anything like that come up.
Yeah.
So, so sometimes people, when they call, they just want to know what the fees are, want to know that it's being taken care of, and how things progress.
Yeah.
So we usually don't get to what happens at the end.
Sure. Until you're at the end.
Until you get closer.
Again.
Well, some people want to know what happens next, and then we go through that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
and you're really working on the purchase and sale, all the provisions that are listed in there.
Right.
Yeah. Inspection, purchase and sale,
Right.
mortgage, insurance, clean title. Those are the major major pieces. And then you've mentioned fees a few times. Is it just, you don't have to tell us your specific fees, but is there a rough kind of list even of what people could expect when they're working with an attorney, again, as first-time home buyers buying a new house?
Sure. In terms of fees, usually what I concentrate on, there's the legal fee, and that can run anywhere from, I used to say $450, but it's probably nobody's doing it for that anymore. Say $500-600.
I was going to say that'd be extremely reasonable.
Yeah. But you have the legal fee, so say $500-600 all the way up to maybe $1,200-1,400. That's the legal fee, and then the title examination. And then I tell people, we'll find out whether the legal fee includes the title exam, because now most of us use outside consultants to do the titles. Like I use a law firm that's all they do is the titles. So that's generally between $200 and $300. It can run more depending on the complexity. And then there's other things like the title insurance, which varies depending on the cost of the property and the amount of the mortgage. It's a sliding scale. Yeah. And then I tell people to check to see whether there's other fees like doc prep or document preparation fee, or some attorneys have outside paralegals that the paralegal charges their fee as well. So you're paying the legal plus the paralegal fee. Right. So that's. I mean, I don't know if I went through everything, but. Yeah.
That's basically
those are the numbers. And sometimes I even get down to where I'm typing it all up and giving them a sheet with all the numbers.
Yeah. What's the most common question that you get from people when you do the first-time homebuyer courses?
Well, the first is the threshold question. Why do I need an attorney? Yeah. What does the attorney do? Right. So I attempt to answer that. And then the cost is a big one. Yeah. And they always have their own situation. Like, okay, well, sometimes they want to have their spouse may not be on the note or may not be on the note, but they want them on the ownership, the title to the property. So that's a general question that comes in. Yeah. If they are going to be buying a two-family, for example, there's tenancy questions about inheriting a tenant or renting or how that all works out. Right. So that's like most common things. Yeah.
And then with the landlord situation, or if somebody wants to buy say two-family, live in one side, rent the other, does that change at all really what you're doing as an attorney on your due diligence, or is it essentially a similar process?
If the property is going to be vacant, for example, there's a two-family, but all the tenants have moved out, or all the people that own it moved out. So there's a two-family, but nobody's living there. Your buyers then take over. There's not as many concerns because you're not worried about the tenant. The only concern then is, well, can you help me do a lease, or what do I do, or that sort of thing. The concern comes in when you're buying a property and one unit is vacant, but the other unit has a tenant that you're going to inherit. Right. So that brings up a lot of issues because you have to know what the rent is, if it's being paid on time, if there's a security deposit, if there's last month's rent, and then just, I guess, make sure that the tenant is someone you're going to be able to live with, because they're either upstairs from you or downstairs or through the wall or wherever. So that's a big issue. Yeah. But you really have to be very careful about tenants and taking over security deposits and last month's rents, because if you end up having to evict a tenant or disagree with the tenant, having all the paperwork when you move in is critical. Yeah, yeah. Are there any pitfalls you see that first-time home buyers tend to fall into? Yeah, I suppose if I mean, what I like is, and especially sometimes the referrals I get from the first-time homebuyer class, I know that they're educated. I know that they have kind of in their mind already the questions to ask and what to know ahead of time. Now, if somebody's coming into it fresh, they're relying upon me and the realtor to give them all of the information. Right. So The pitfalls really, if you're buying a property, the inspection is critical. Now, a lot of times now people are buying and they're waiving inspections because that's the only way they can get into a house.
Yeah.
So that's got to be nerve-wracking. If you're involved in any kind of special, like there's not. I haven't hit so many recently, but especially when I was in Springfield, people were buying properties that had been foreclosed. So it was you're buying it from the bank or from the company that is running it for the bank.
Right.
And they are very hands-off, and they won't do anything.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole nother
Sometimes
level
more
of
expensive too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So you really have to rely on your inspection and your realtor and that sort of thing. And so
that's a lot. When I often get this question a lot too. People wonder, should they try to find a for sale by owner? This pocket listing phrase is getting such a hot topic recently, because I think it's on all the Netflix shows and everything. I won't name any shows, but
right.
But we don't. I don't know about in your experience. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of real estate agents that are hiding these listings around here. But anyway.
Oh yeah, I don't think so.
When you work with people though who aren't using a real estate agent, how does that make the process different, especially as a first-time home buyer?
Yeah, so I know going in that that's going to be the case. So I have to wear an extra hat because I know that there's a lot that, I mean, sometimes it seems like the realtor just shows them the house and then steps back.
Yeah.
But there's a ton
they
of
do
things.
so much more.
There's a ton of things that they're running around doing. And so I have to be kind of with my checklist saying, okay, now it's time to worry about the insurance. Now it's time to worry about the smoke detector inspection if you're the seller. Now it's time to worry about what's the deal with your inspection? Have you worked something out there? And then with the lender, you really have to kind of keep prodding people to, reminding people to, if people are too relaxed about getting their applications pulled together, all of a sudden the dates are upon them that they have to kind of, and then the seller's saying, well, why is it taking so long?
Right.
And so forth. So you have to be a bit more hands-on.
Yeah, sounds like it's like that project management piece is missing, right? That the real estate agents do so much. Yeah. So you have chosen in your career path to also be really engaged in the Northampton Chamber and in the homebuyer classes that you're doing pro bono, just volunteering your time.
Right.
How did that decision come about?
I would, basically, I was involved, as we mentioned, being on the different boards. When I moved to Northampton, I wanted to get involved in the community because I didn't want to just be sitting by the sidelines. And so legally, it does often help when you're an attorney and you're on one of the boards.
Yeah.
Now they have access. Let's just take Northampton. Northampton has in-house in-house counselor, but the use of the access to those people is fairly tight because it's expensive.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have somebody on the boards. I enjoyed that work, but then I got tired of being all the evenings, like every week.
Yeah.
And so when I stepped down, I mean, all the way along, I'm interested in kind of being involved in the community, knowing, kind of what's going on and getting to know more people, and so forth. So doing certain things pro bono was fine, and I enjoyed it. Like I did some work with the David Regal Center, and that was really good because that sort of thing feeds the soul a bit more than just your basic real estate transaction. And that was the same thing. And I was in a referral group, and when that kind of wound down, I was getting more involved in the chamber. And I always tell people the Chamber of Commerce is a great place to get involved. You may or may not get business referrals from that, but just knowing all the people that are involved, that are, they tend to be the active people involved in doing things in the city.
Yeah.
So you're just getting to know all the movers and the shakers and the people that are also behind the scenes doing things.
Right.
And the other great thing about the Northampton Chamber is that there's so many nonprofits involved, where we have a lot more, greater percentage than many other chambers.
Right.
So you're also dealing with a lot of the other groups in town that are part of the chamber.
Yeah.
So, and I always tell people, if you're going to do the chamber, you get yourself yourself on a committee, get yourself involved, because just going to the meetings or just going to the Arrive at Fives isn't really going to do it.
You're only seeing the tip
We
of
did
the
that for a
iceberg.
year when we moved our office. I've lived in Florence since we moved to Florence in 1987, so we were there for a long time. I was still working in Springfield, but then when we moved our office in 2010 to Northampton, we said, all right, well, we're going to go to all the chamber events and so forth. And a year went by and nothing was happening, and I said, no, I got to get more involved.
Yeah.
So that's how it all sort of evolved.
Yeah. All the way up to a committee member, chair of the ambassador committee, right at one point, on the board at another point. So that's huge.
It's fun.
I think it is fun, and I think as I'm listening to you, I mean, that's a big part of it too, right? It's like, how do you have your career, your day-to-day work, which is very important, and also expand it and grow it and make sure that it's always interesting, and you do that by helping and giving back, which is huge.
And I also when I was on the ambassadors, I was encouraging, and people do this anyway. They do business with people that they know and they're familiar with and trusting. But I did do more in terms of encouraging people to work with other members of the ambassador committee or other members of the chamber.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got my website redone, and some promotional materials and so forth. All those people around the chamber.
Right. Especially as an entrepreneur, which many people involved in real estate are, right? We've been focusing on first-time homebuyers, but there's investors and, developers and all that. You wear a lot of different hats, so you might not just be looking for your next real estate transaction. It could be something else. So we're almost up on time, which this always flies by, and it's so fun to chat. I've got some kind of just funny icebreakers to close out.
All right.
You ready for them? Okay.
I'm probably not ready.
No, they're not that silly. The first one is a little. So, coffee or cocktails while house searching?
Coffee, probably.
Okay.
Yeah,
how do you take your coffee?
Or like a Monster Celsius drink or something like that.
Oh, wow. I didn't take you for an energy drink person. See, I told you it'd be silly.
The Celsius.
What is one local business you love to support right now?
Well, a lot of the restaurants. Somebody asked me if which restaurant was good in Northampton. I was like, it depends on what kind of food you like, because there's so many.
We're so lucky.
So the restaurants are the first one, and then Elena Sharnoff did a great job on my website. I can't stop talking about it because our phone calls tripled after a website went on, and I was just blown away.
It really
from
works.
That.
Must be that SEO in the background. Really cool. So Elena's business is Be Strategic.
Be Strategic, yes.
Okay. Shout out for Elena. Describe your experience in the housing market in just one word.
Competitive.
Okay, all right. Whoa, we've been talking about all this collaboration, but there it is.
Yes.
Favorite room in your house and why?
Favorite room in my house, the kitchen, because that's kind of where people gravitate and they sit and talk, and that's you have your breakfast and coffee in the morning. I do have the coffee in the morning.
You do, yeah.
Yeah.
Not the Celsius, just
not
the
the
coffee.
Celsius.
Celsius is after.
That's 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Do you cook?
Yes. Yeah, I do most of the cooking.
What's your favorite thing to cook?
Well, I cook breakfast. Cook eggs for breakfast.
Awesome.
But for favorite thing to cook, I don't know. I'm doing a lot of grilling lately.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah.
Summertime.
Yeah.
All right. So if you could leave us with one piece of advice specific to those first-time homebuyers, again, who are just entering the market right now, last parting words of encouragement?
Yeah, no, I encourage people to shop around for attorneys, talk to 3 or 4 or 5, wherever you're comfortable with, and then get on board with somebody early, even when you're starting to make offers, before you start to make offers, because you never know, I mean, what kind of, what questions might come up.
Yeah.
And, there was somebody that said, oh, it was the solar panel contract. And they needed to have it looked at right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was like, okay, get on board and do this, and so get someone early.
Early, yeah, that's great advice. People usually wait. So
yes.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Sure.
This has been awesome.
Thank you.
I'm going to close us out here, but I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah.
So, and thank you to all of our listeners and viewers. That's a wrap for Real People Real Estate this week. Thank you for tuning in, and if you are inspired by this story and want to come on here and be a guest, I'd love to have you. Check out the link in our bio and tune in every 2 weeks. We want to encourage people to do all their awesome real estate things and plant their roots right here in Western Massachusetts. We'll see you around town.